Thomas here and welcome back to another video. So today I'm really excited to show you this video as this is how I built the village starter in the Sims 4 Cottage Living expansion pack. In case you didn't hear, I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to build 3 official lots for the new expansion pack. I've already uploaded one which you may have seen, the country home. We've got this one, and then I also did the starter home in the forest neighbourhood right at the top of the map as well. So this one, like I said, is the village starter home, but as you can see we are in the forest area where the actual forest starter is. You might be a bit confused. So basically what happened is I did this starter home for the forest, and then the build that is actually here, the actual forest starter home, was first built in the village, and then it got a few days before the final hand in, and the Sims team asked if I would be able to swap around the builds, so this one here goes to the village, and then the one that's in the village comes to the forest. So hopefully that makes sense. So as you can see here, we are starting in the forest neighbourhood of the world, but in the end we'll be back in the village. And yeah, so that was really interesting. I had a lot of little changes to do like that, which is fine. I'm totally fine with it. But yeah, just hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, this build is on a 30 by 20 lot, and it has 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and it came in at just under 18,000 simoleons, which is really cheap. And like I said, I've done the country home, which is on a 50 by 40 lot, and then I've done this home and another starter home. The starter homes were very much of a challenge, and as you know, starter homes are a challenge in general because you've got the price restriction as well. But even more so here because I had the price restriction, but also all of EA restrictions as well for building for the pack. I've talked a lot about this in my country home video if you want to learn about that. But you know, it's not just like keeping it cheap. There's like certain things in terms of items you've got to use, certain things you can't use, and also of course no move objects or anything like that. So it was a long process of trying to get it perfect, as all 3 of the builds were, and also the same with all of the builders that did things for this pack. It was a lot of work, but in the end I'm so happy how it turned out. So this footage you're seeing here is like from March. Just as you would have saw the disclaimer at the start of the video, just let you know that this software is not final, so by the time you get your hands on the game, some things may have changed, just to let you know. But like I said, I did my final hand in of my builds in May, and then just this week I got access to another version of the game with the final builds in, and I was warned that, like all of us, that, you know, the Sims team are going to have to like optimize things, so items may be removed and things like that, which, you know, makes sense for performance. But actually my builds are pretty much the same as how I left them, which is really great, because we did actually have the opportunity to kind of go through and do our own optimization, because we all knew that things were going to have to be removed. So I was like, okay, well, if I have the chance to do it myself, I'm going to remove things like what I want first. And we did actually able to say to the Sims team, like, could you leave like this alone as much as you can if like you really liked how an area turned out. But overall, like, I didn't really notice many changes. I think like the only thing I noticed, was it this house or the other one? I'm pretty sure, was it this house? Yes, it was this house. The single bedroom, the bedside table, like the end table, was removed, and that'll just be for performance reasons. So that's really the only thing I noticed that changed. So this build, I wanted to be really rustic looking. As I said, this was going to be in this forest to start with, so that was my process of like thinking. Like I said, it did end up being in the village setting, but it still fits really nicely there, I think. So basically what I changed as the process gone on, similar to the country home, was just mainly adding in more colour as time gone on, and also some items were slightly more modern than others. So like, as you would have saw there, I've got like that modern bookshelf in from base game. I don't know what on earth I was thinking putting that bookshelf in this like rustic country build, but yeah, that was one thing I did end up changing. And the overall structure of the build sort of kind of stayed the same once I got this sort of like ground floor, just like 1-story home situation sorted, because to begin with, as you would have saw, it was actually a 2-story home, and I went back and forth so much with changing, like just sort of building and then scrapping the build and starting again, which I think is fine because I wanted to get it perfect, because, you know, I may not have this opportunity again, so like I wanted to make sure I was doing the best I could. So I did change it up so many times, but I did end up going with a 1-story home. I didn't quite realise like how much I would have to like restrict myself, the Sims team told us when we first did our first hand-in of the builds to them to review, which I think was like at the end of March, and they said like the first build you do, kind of just put as much as you want in it, like at that point don't restrict yourself and stuff. So that's kind of what I did, but also not like trying to make it more difficult for myself later down the line, because I know like a lot of the stuff will have to be removed. So I think like my first hand in, it was at like 26,000, which like I was sort of aware of, but I was like, this is definitely going to need a lot of work to like make this a lot cheaper. So yeah, I was sort of like trying to prepare myself for that, but to say it was like a challenge is kind of an understatement. It was actually so difficult to try and get it cheap, because like, I think I do starter homes in The Sims 4, like, I'll keep them around 20, but, like, this is for, like, the game, so, like, you want, like, a little bit of money for your Sims that, you know, are here as well, and it's kind of just a little bit of a different thought process when you're building for the actual game. So, yeah, I had to get much cheaper than 20,000 as well, so, like, every time I did a hand in, the Sims team was like, we need a little bit cheaper, but in the end, like, the Sims team were really great with trying to help us, you know, with that, so I was lucky enough to have pretty much all of the plants in game significantly reduced. So the plants were like cut on price like a lot to begin with, and then there'd be another pass where they'd reduce the price again, and then they reduce the price again. So when you look at the price of plants now, it's kind of crazy how much they reduced, and I'm so lucky they did that so I could include them all in this build. Because one of the things that were wanted for this build was to kind of have it overgrown and just lots of plants. So to do that on a budget, you know, in a starter home doesn't really all work together. So it was really great they could adjust things like that to make it work, and I think it turned out really well in the end. But anyway, moving forward from that, like just in general in the game, I'm so happy that the plants are cheaper now, because like when I go back to my country home, as you would have saw, the first build I done on the 50x40, that house was huge and there's so many plants, but it was still like 100,000 simoleons, which is not expensive at all for a big house like that. So, you know, the reduction in price of the plants really helped with that, so thank you so much to the Sims team. But yeah, so we're just kind of working on getting the layout of the home done in terms of the outside. This I kind of went back and forwards with quite a lot, and it does end up changing again when we move to the village, because like as you can see, the gate for like the actual stone fence, that's on the side, but because as you can kind of see the world, how the driveway kind of goes up from the left hand side, but in the village there's like stairs at the front of the lot instead, so I did actually move that around a little bit, but it kind of stays like generally the same. Like you've got like, you know, the porch for the actual house, you've got a little bit of like paved area here in the middle, and they've also got like a little garden area at the back with those new items to plant crops on. And then also later down the line, the Sims team really wanted to start a home in the world which also had a chicken coop in it, which I thought was a really good idea actually, because starter homes, when you've got like this many restrictions and trying to keep it cheap, there's not like loads of stuff your Sims can do like actually on the lot. So I thought that was a really great idea to try and you know, make things a little bit more interesting. But again, that item originally was kind of expensive, so they did have to cut that item price quite a lot to make it work in this build, which was really nice to hear that changed it for this build. But yeah, so as you can see, the interior is very dark. If you saw like the little video intro thing at the start, the little clip of the interior, it does change quite a bit. It just incorporates more colour. I did talk about this a lot in my country home build as well, but it's also the same situation where I went for like a very neutral colour scheme, and then it was just kind of too dull. So I went back and added in a lot more colour. And also you can kind of see here as well, the living room choice was a bit questionable. I went for like southwestern themed things, because a lot of like the cheap items, it was kind of difficult to kind of get that style of items you want, and also cheap ones for a starter home. So it was a little bit difficult to kind of go back and forwards of like, you know, trying to make that work. But in the end, I'm so happy how it turned out. And as you can see, I'm using like some of the wallpaper from the outside to bring it in as well. I thought it was just a little interesting thing just to make things look a little bit more interesting inside. So I used that kind of rustic siding that was on the outside and brought that in. And also, speaking of like neutral colour schemes, I chose my 3 lots to be ones that weren't occupied by Sims, and that was just to kind of go with my idea of like how I like to do neutral homes in general, and not kind of have them too specific. So really you can take any type of family and put them in here, so that's kind of another reason why things were kept on the more neutral side. But yeah, so we've kind of got the main structure of the house done, and at this point for like the last couple of weeks that I had, you know, the ability to work on the homes. It was kind of just going around trying to incorporate more colour and also make it cheaper as well. And that was such a challenge because it's not like just doing like, you know, make it a few thousand cheaper. It was a significant reduction in price I had to do over time to make it like as cheap as it could possibly be and still functional. So it was a case of like making slight adjustments to the size of the home, just like reducing that a little bit, and changing up items to things that are more cheaper, and also reducing, as much as the plants are cheap, taking a couple of plants out as well to still make it look overgrown but also help keep the price down. And as you saw there, we put the chicken coop in as well, and like I said, the price of that came down quite a bit as well. But yeah, so overall I haven't really had the opportunity to actually play the game because I've just been focusing on these 3 builds and haven't like looked at the gameplay side of it. But let me know what you're thinking of it from seeing other people's videos so far. What's your opinions on the pack? So I haven't really like played with the game, but I did like back in the very early version of the game back in March. It was really interesting to kind of just go in live mode and sort of see how things have changed and how things weren't ready. Like there'll be like little placeholder items of like just non-textured things, like in the village for example, and sort of seeing it build up over time because like we'll get an update like every few weeks of like more items added in. So when I first had access to this build, by build I mean like build of the game, there wasn't like that many items in this actual pack, but you know, every few weeks, like I said, we'll get another update and there'll be some more items added in, and you can sort of just build up your builds over time as well, which is great to see how everything sort of progressed. It was also really interesting to sit on these Zoom calls as well with the Sims team and sort of listen to how their kind of thought processes of building this game up and like how far in advance like they start planning and seeing how the process evolves over time. And I still find it just really weird to be talking about this after keeping it quiet for so many months. I think like the first time I found out about this opportunity was like at the end of last year, and then kind of in January I got some more information on a call and then sort of progressed from there, but kind of learn about the features and like the pond tool, as you would have heard. It's just amazing. So I'm so glad we have this pack. It's definitely up my alley. There's a lot of other build ideas I have, and I've heard a few other people like talking about this as well, like having to like delete your builds to do something else, because you don't really think about that like in the actual game. Like in base game there'll be like a base game build there from like that shipped with the game, but you'll just like delete it and like start building something. But I feel like that's gonna be so different now. Like my actual builds are always there, and then like having to delete them to like do something else. But I am gonna go back through and renovate my builds just with like having, when I actually get the game for like the final one, because all I'm using here is like another build of the game. And as you can see, my username's kind of going around the screen as well. But when I get the actual final game and I have like all the other packs, because at the minute I've just got base game and cottage living in the game, I'm going to have all the other packs in. And I think it might be a nice idea to kind of be able to use move objects again and things like that, and sort of go back in the builds and sort of doing it up in a way where, what would I do if I didn't have these restrictions? Because the restrictions are like make total sense, because you've got to make sure like all these builds can work on any type of computer. So I'm really looking forward to see like how I would kind of do it differently if I didn't have any restrictions. So that's the plan. I'm definitely doing it with my country home. I'm not sure what you think about doing it for this home, because it's the starter home and also the forest starter home, because they're kind of starter homes anyway, so I want to kind of keep them like that. So there's not going to be like a ton of things I can do with those, but I'm still going to give it a go and see what I would do differently. But anyway, as you can see, we've now moved into the actual village, and we've just changing up things slightly to make it fit in this world, because there's this like stairs going up to it, so just adjusting kind of the placement of the fence for that. And then like the final bits was basically just going through, make sure I was happy before my final hand in, making sure all the train paint was how it was supposed to be and things like that. But yeah, that's it for today's build. I really hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't, and make sure you check out my other 2 builds I've done with this pack as well. Those will be up on the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!